1 in 2 Americans cannot afford a $1,000 financial emergency. This means that statistically, between you and your friend, one of you is screwed. Hello, my friends. This is Ruben, and in today's video, I'm going to share with you what an emergency fund is, why you should have an emergency fund, when you should use that emergency fund, how much should be in your emergency fund, and most importantly, where you should put that emergency fund. By the end of this video, you are going to be an expert in emergency funds. I guarantee it. And in fact, you're going to be well on your way to setting up one for yourself. Together, let's change the statistics so that 2 in 2 Americans can cover a $1,000 financial emergency. Before we get into the whole shebang, please click that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. We're almost at 50 subscribers, and it allows videos like this to reach a wider audience, and especially those who are in need. An emergency fund is a certain amount of money set aside specifically for life's unexpected events in a completely separate account. Before I ask you to start an emergency fund, I think it's key to share a story from my life on why I think it's important to have an emergency fund. Right after graduating from high school, I was able to get my hands on a Lincoln Town Car for $2,000 so that way I can drive to and from school and work. Now, this car was beautiful. I absolutely loved it. It was huge like a yacht. I was just driving down it. It was so beautiful. And then Michigan snowstorm happened. And I'm telling you, this was the snowstorm of all snowstorms. And I know everyone says that, but I really mean it. It was terrible. Snow was falling left and right. The wet sliding ice was like a slip and slide on a hot summer's day, and it was bitter cold. And I'm driving down Thornapple Drive, passing a green light when the person opposite of me says, you know what? It's time for me to turn left. She turns left. I slam my brakes. I slide, hit her in the tail, spun out, hit another car, spun out again, and then bam! My car is totaled. The brand new tires we put on the car are absolutely trashed. And to put a cherry on top of the whole thing, the driver that hit me hightailed out of there. It was a hit and run. I had minimum liability insurance and they wouldn't cover a dime. I had no emergency fund, so that my ride to and from school was absolutely gone. I had to figure a way out to get to school and to get to my job by switching the shifts around, but it was absolutely terrible. If that doesn't convince you that you need an emergency fund, let me give you something a little bit more sobering and impactful. 2 years ago, at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, the subsequent business closures resulted in over 50 million Americans being unemployed. One of them could have been you too. And look, that's not a fake number. That's a real number. Jobless claims rose as high as 50 million. That's 1 in 6 Americans were unemployed. That's including everybody. An emergency fund during this time could have been a lifesaver for so many people. Now, hopefully that doesn't happen again. But now I think it's wise for all of us to have an emergency fund set aside just in case it does. Let's first talk about when you can use your emergency fund. If you can answer yes to 2 out of 3 of these next questions, you should use your emergency fund. The first question, is it unexpected? You have a major surgery planned in the next 6 months. That's not unexpected, therefore you should not use your emergency fund. But let's say you're driving and your tire blows out. Look, unless you're a psychic, it's unexpected and you should definitely use your emergency fund. The second question, is it necessary? You're throwing a ball around, hitting a baseball, whatever it is you're doing in your house that your parents told you never to do, and bam, you hit a TV screen and it breaks. Look, is it necessary to actually replace the television? Probably not. I personally would not use my emergency fund for that situation. However, let's say you chip a tooth on a table. Yeah, I would definitely use my emergency fund for that. Now, third question, is it urgent? Let's say that your family's throwing a 4th of July blowout. It's gonna be amazing, but you need to get a ticket to fly down there. Well, guess what? It's not really urgent. It's April right now, so it's gonna take a while before it comes. So I would not use an emergency fund in that situation. But let's say that your dear grandmother is in the hospital and you need to fly home tonight. I would 100% use my emergency fund in that situation. Now, once again, if you can just answer yes to 2 out of 3 of these questions, you're golden to use your emergency fund. Something that always seems confusing to me is how much money I should have in my emergency fund. And to me, it all boils down to whether you have a job and whether you have debt. If you don't have a job, it's time to get a job, any job. Try your best to just get any job. It doesn't matter if it has similar pay and benefits. It just matters that you have some sort of income coming in. If you are working and in debt, and I'm talking about debt that is not student loans or mortgages, then you should definitely save up only 1 month of living expenses. Now, if your living expenses are under $2,000, save up at least $2,000. And I know that number seems to be high, but honestly, I've been on the wrong side of this more than once, and it is beautiful when you have a good amount of money set aside in case of financial emergencies. If you're working and are out of debt except a student loan or mortgage, then I recommend you set aside the number of months that it takes you to find a new job with similar pay and benefits. Now here's an exception. You should have at least 3 months minimum of living expenses saved up regardless. Here's an example. In my past career and my current level of experience, it would take me 72 hours to find a new job with similar pay and benefits. However, this means that I should have at least 3 months of living expenses saved up. Now, if you think it'll take you 6, 9, or even 12 months to find a new job with similar pay and benefits, that's okay. Just make sure your emergency fund is that big. Remember, the number of months of living expenses that it takes you to find a new job with similar pay and benefits. Now, here's a little caveat. If you have children, I recommend adding 3 months to whatever the number is. It doesn't matter if it takes 12 months, make it 15. That extra little buffer of safety will be important to your family and it'll create an ease of mind. At this point, you might very well be saying, Ruben, I have no money to set aside for an emergency fund, none whatsoever. What do I do? It's a hard truth for many, and I've been there myself as well. And honestly, the only thing I can say is to try. You'll be surprised at how much money you can set aside if you make an intention to create an emergency fund. And look, you don't have to start with huge numbers. You don't have to start with $2,000. You can start with a few dollars a week and just increase that over time until you hit that number. In the past, I've taken on extra jobs, sold some things around the house, and even cut back expenses. I'm not telling you to go get another job and sell things on the side forever. No. In fact, these actions can be temporary until you can fill up your emergency fund to the appropriate balance. So you're on your way to building an emergency fund, but where do you put it? The best place to put an emergency fund is somewhere where you can reach it quickly. And I'm talking, if you can reach it within half an hour, that's the best spot. This right here is going to sound like a bit of a rant, but I'm really tired of people sharing it on the internet that you need to make money off your emergency fund. You don't. You don't need to make $5 off of interest by having it in a high yield savings account. You don't need to make money off it in the stock market. That's not what an emergency fund is for. It's for emergencies. There's no safe investment for an emergency fund. Everything has risk. The best spot for you to put it is somewhere where there is limited risk and where you can access it within 30 minutes. Do not buy this idea that you always need to be beating inflation or making money off of your interest accounts or anything like that. You don't. You don't. This is an emergency fund. It's used for emergencies. Given that, the best spot to put your money is a checking account, a savings account, or a money market account at a national bank that has a lot of branches and access to ATMs. I'm talking Wells Fargo, Chase, or Bank of America. And look, I know there's people out there that are going to say something like, Ruben, you should put your money in a credit union because it's helpful for the local community. And I get that having your money in a community bank is great for general purposes. However, in case of an emergency, I've been on the wrong side of this and I've been locked out of my account over the weekend at a credit union, and it wasn't until the following Monday that I could actually get my money out. That's not good for an emergency. Having a bank, a national bank that has access 24/7 to your money, that's where you want to keep your emergency fund. Now with that, believe it or not, having some cash on hand hidden in your car, house, or family or friend's home is a good idea. Personally, I'd recommend anywhere from $150 to $500. For me, it's just enough money to get a hotel night stay as well as a flight back home to friends or family. Now that's about $500 in total. Now once again, this stems from my personal experience of being locked out from a bank account completely, and it may vary differently for you. Some out there may say something like, well, Ruben, I'll just use my credit card for financial emergencies. I get it. I totally get it. In a pinch, sometimes using a credit card is the only thing you have for financial emergencies. But I'm going to be honest with you, that's not a good idea. The reason being is because let's say that your financial emergency gets extended and now you've got a 16% average interest rate on these credit cards adding on top of that. Not only do you have one financial emergency, but you just created a whole second financial emergency. So the best thing for you to do is to start an emergency fund right away so that way you don't have to rely on credit cards, personal loans, or family members for financial emergencies. It's important that when you use up your emergency fund, you replenish it right away. It's always important to have an emergency fund. Align your budget so that way your emergency fund gets funded every single time you use it. It is so important. I cannot stress it enough. It is important to have an emergency fund. If you've learned anything from this video, it's to start setting up an emergency fund today in a completely separate account at a national bank so you're not tempted to touch it. It's the most important thing that you can do today. And I'm talking, you don't have to put $2,000 right away. Like I said, just put $2 in. It doesn't matter. But start today and make the intention of building that emergency fund to the number of months that you need. You will feel the stress of financial emergencies just flow right off of you. It'll feel so nice. I promise you, I guarantee that you'll feel this weight off your shoulders being lifted and like you're floating. Now, one of the most important things that you can do for your financial literacy is clicking that like button and subscribing if you haven't already for the YouTube algorithm. It helps me tremendously. It tells me what content is good, what content is bad, and how much more I should share. And also, it helps this channel out tremendously as well, so that way we can reach a wider audience. Share this video with a buddy of yours that you think could use an emergency fund. And comment below when's the first time you ever had to use an emergency fund but you just didn't have the money. I'll share mine too. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you tomorrow. Hey, thanks for watching this video, and check out this video right here and click that subscribe button. It will help out tremendously. I'll wait while you do that.